Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to discuss how to learn to move on in life. Now, this might sound simple, but I promise you, mastering this skill will change everything. You see, life is a journey, not a destination. And on this journey, we encounter all sorts of experiences, some good, some bad, some that lift us up, and some that knock us down. But here's the thing. It's not what happens to us that determines our success. It's how we respond to what happens. Moving on in life is about understanding that you can't change the past, but you can shape your future. It's about recognizing that every ending is also a new beginning. It's about having the courage to close one chapter and start writing the next. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but Jim, it's not that easy. I've been hurt. I've made mistakes. I've lost opportunities. And you're right, it's not easy, but let me tell you something. Nothing worth having in life ever is. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending that difficult things didn't happen. It means learning from those experiences, extracting the lessons, and then setting your sights on what's ahead. You see, too many people get stuck in the past. They replay old hurts, old failures, old disappointments over and over in their minds. And you know what happens when you do that? You miss out on the present. You miss out on the opportunities that are right in front of you. I want you to imagine for a moment that you're driving a car. Now, what happens if you spend all your time looking in the rearview mirror? That's right, you're going to crash. You might even hurt yourself or others. The rearview mirror is small for a reason. It's there to give you a quick glance at what's behind you. But your focus should be on the road ahead. Life is the same way. Yes, it's important to reflect on our past experiences to learn from them, but we can't live there. We have to keep moving forward. Now let's talk about why moving on is so important. First and foremost, it's essential for your personal growth. You see, growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. It happens when you step out into the unknown, when you embrace new challenges, when you're willing to let go of what's familiar and safe in order to reach for something better. Think about a plant for a moment. For a seed to grow into a beautiful flower or a mighty tree, it has to break out of its shell. It has to push through the dirt. It has to reach for the sunlight. And in the process, it transforms itself completely. You and I are no different. To grow, to become the best versions of ourselves, we have to be willing to move on from who we were yesterday. We have to be willing to let go of old habits, old beliefs, old ways of thinking that no longer serve us. But here's the beautiful thing. When you learn to move on, when you embrace change and growth, you open yourself up to a world of possibilities. You see, the universe has an amazing way of bringing new opportunities into our lives when we create space for it. Think about it. How many times have you heard stories of people who lost a job only to start a successful business? Or people who went through a difficult breakup only to meet the love of their life? These things happen because these people were willing to move on, to let go of what was in order to make room for what could be. Now, I'm not saying it's always easy. Moving on often requires courage. It requires faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the future, faith that better things are coming. But let me tell you, that faith is well placed, because when you move on, when you keep growing and evolving, you're aligning yourself with the natural order of the universe. You see, everything in nature is in a constant state of change. The seasons change. Day turns into night and back again. Even our own bodies are constantly renewing themselves at a cellular level. Change is the only constant in life. And when we learn to move on, we're simply flowing with that natural rhythm instead of fighting it. But here's something crucial to understand. Moving on isn't about running away from your problems. It's not about avoiding difficult emotions or pretending that everything is okay when it's not. Moving on is about facing your challenges head on, dealing with them, learning from them, and then continuing on your journey. It's like crossing a river. You can't just ignore the current or pretend it's not there. You have to acknowledge it, respect its power, and then find a way to navigate through it to reach the other side. In the same way, moving on in life requires us to acknowledge our pain, our disappointments, our setbacks. We need to feel those feelings, process them, understand them. But then we need to make a conscious decision not to set up camp in that emotional. We need to pack up our learnings and continue on our journey. Now, some of you might be wondering, Jim, how do I actually do this? How do I learn to move on? Well, I'm glad you asked, because learning to move on is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed with practice. The first step is awareness. You need to become aware when you're getting stuck in the past. Are you constantly replaying old conversations in your head? Are you holding on to grudges? Are you telling yourself the same old stories about why you can't succeed? Once you become aware of these patterns, you can start to change them. The next step is acceptance. Accept that what's done is done. Accept that you can't change the past. Accept that everyone, including you, is doing the best they can with the knowledge and resources they have at any given moment. This acceptance doesn't mean you approve of everything that's happened. It simply means you're no longer fighting against reality, and when you stop fighting reality, you free up an enormous amount of energy that you can channel into moving forward. After acceptance comes learning. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? How can I use this to become a better, stronger, wiser person? You see, every experience, good or bad, has something to teach us if we're willing to look for the lesson. And finally, there's action. Moving on isn't just a mental exercise. It requires us to take concrete steps in a new direction. Maybe that means starting a new project, meeting new people, learning a new skill, or simply changing up your daily routine. The specific action isn't as important as the fact that you're taking action, that you're physically as well as mentally moving forward. Now, let me share with you a powerful tool that can help you in this process. It's something I call the rearview mirror rule. Here's how it works. Imagine you're driving and you see something in your rearview mirror. You glance at it briefly, get the information you need, and then you refocus on the road ahead. You don't stare at the rearview mirror, because if you did, you'd crash. Apply this same principle to your life. When thoughts of past events come up, acknowledge them briefly. Get whatever information or lesson you need from them. Then consciously refocus your attention on the present moment and the road ahead. This doesn't mean you never think about the past. It means you control when and how you do it. You use the past as a reference point, not as a place to live. Remember, your life moves in the direction of your most dominant thoughts. If you're constantly thinking about the past, that's where your life energy will go. But if you train yourself to focus on the present and the future, that's where you'll find growth and opportunity. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from moving on. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of getting hurt again. These fears are natural. But here's the thing, they're also based on an illusion. You see, the future is always unknown. Even if you stay exactly where you are, even if you never take another risk or try anything new, you can't predict or control what will happen. So why not choose the unknown that comes with growth and possibility, rather than the unknown that comes? As for failure, well, let me tell you something. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of success. Every successful person you admire has failed many times. The difference is they didn't let those failures stop. They learned from them, they adjusted their approach, and they kept moving forward. And getting hurt? Yes, opening yourself up to new experiences means you might get hurt. But you might also experience joy, love, and fulfillment beyond anything you've known before. And isn't that possibility worth the risk? Here's a little secret. The people who seem the happiest, the most fulfilled, are not the ones who've had the easiest lives. They're the ones who've learned to move on, to keep growing, to keep embracing life with all its ups and downs. Now, I want to talk about something that's crucial in learning to move on. Forgiveness. And I'm not just talking about forgiving others, although that's important. I'm talking about forgiving yourself. You see, many of us carry around guilt and regret over past mistakes. We beat ourselves up over decisions we made, things we said or did. But here's the truth. You did the best you could with the knowledge and resources you had at the time. And now that you know better, you can do better. Forgiving yourself doesn't mean you're letting yourself off the hook. It means you're freeing yourself from the burden of the past so you can focus your energy on creating a better future. Remember, you are not your mistakes. You are not your past. You are a constantly evolving being with infinite potential for growth and change. So forgive yourself. Learn from your mistakes, yes, but then let them go. Allow yourself to move on. Now, let's talk about another important aspect of moving on. Letting go of expectations. Often, what keeps us stuck is not the actual events of the past, but the expectations we had about how things should have turned out. We had an idea in our minds about how our lives should look, how a relationship should have gone, how our careers should have progressed. And when reality didn't match those expectations, we felt disappointed, hurt, maybe even betrayed. But here's the things. Life rarely goes exactly as we plan, and that's okay. In fact, sometimes the detours, the unexpected turns, lead us to even better destinations than we had originally planned. So part of learning to move on is learning to let go of rigid expectations. It's about being flexible, adaptable, open to the possibilities that life presents us. It's about trusting that even if things don't go as planned, they can still work out in ways we never imagined. This doesn't mean you shouldn't have goals or aspirations. Of course you should, but hold those goals lightly. Be willing to adjust your course as you go along. Be open to new opportunities, new paths that you might not have considered before. Remember, the goal is progress, not perfection. As long as you're moving forward, as long as you're growing and learning, you're on the right track. Now, I want to address something that often comes up when we talk about moving on. The idea of closure. Many people believe they need closure before they can move on from a situation or relationship. They think they need all their questions answered, all loose ends tied up neatly. But here's the truth. Sometimes closure is a myth. Sometimes we don't get all the answers. Sometimes things end messily or abruptly. And if we wait for perfect closure before we move on, we might be waiting forever. Real closure doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from within. It comes from accepting what is, learning what you can, and then making the decision to move forward. You have the power to give yourself closure at any moment. You don't need anyone else's permission or cooperation to move on with your life. This is incredibly empowering when you really understand it. It means you're not at the mercy of others or of circumstances. You have the power to close one chapter of your life and begin the next whenever you choose. Now, let's talk about something that's absolutely crucial in learning to move on. Self-care. Moving on, especially from difficult or painful situations, requires emotional energy. And if you're running on empty, if you're neglecting your physical and emotional needs, you're going to find it much harder to move forward. So part of learning to move on is learning to take care of yourself. This means different things for different people, but it generally involves basics like getting enough sleep, eating nutritious food, exercising regularly, and engaging in activities that bring you joy and relaxation. It also means setting boundaries, saying no to things that drain you, and yes to things that energize you. It means surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people who encourage your growth. Remember, you can't pour from an empty cup. Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. It gives you the strength and resilience you need to face challenges, to learn, to grow, and to keep moving forward. Now, I want to talk about the role of gratitude in learning to move on. You see, when we're stuck in the past, we're often focused on what we've lost, what went wrong, what we don't have. But gratitude shifts our focus to what we do have, what's going right, the blessings in our lives. Practicing gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing to also acknowledge the good things, no matter how small. And when you do this consistently, it changes your entire perspective. When you're grateful, you're naturally more positive and optimistic. You're more resilient in the face of challenges. You're more open to new opportunities. All of these qualities make it easier to move on, to embrace change and growth. So, I encourage you to make gratitude a daily practice. Each day, take a few moments to think about what you're grateful for. Write it down if you can. You'll be amazed at how this simple practice can shift your mindset and help you move forward in life. Now, let's discuss another important aspect of moving on. Learning to live in the present moment. You see, when we're stuck in the past, we're not really living. We're replaying old scenes, reliving old emotions. And when we're anxiously worrying about the future, we're not living either. We're caught up in scenarios that may never happen. The only moment we can truly live in, the only moment we have any real control over, is the present. And when we learn to be fully present, to engage fully with what's happening right now, we naturally let go of the past and future. This doesn't mean we never plan for the future or reflect on the past. It means we do those things consciously, intentionally, and then return our focus to the present moment. Practicing mindfulness can be incredibly helpful here. This could be through meditation, deep breathing exercises, or simply paying closer attention to your sensory experiences throughout the day. The more you practice being present, the easier it becomes to let go of what's behind you and move forward. Now, I want to address something that often comes up when we talk about moving on, the fear of forgetting. Some people resist moving on because they're afraid that if they do, they'll forget important people, experiences, or lessons from their past. But here's the thing. Moving on doesn't mean forgetting. It means putting the past in its proper place as a part of your story, but not the whole story. It means honoring your experiences and the people who've been part of your journey, while also making space for new experiences and relationships. Think of it like this. Your life is like a book, and you're the author. Each experience, each relationship, each challenge and triumph is a chapter in that book. Moving on simply means you're ready to start a new chapter. The previous chapters don't disappear. They're still part of your story. But now you're focused on writing the next part of your adventure. Remember, you carry the lessons and growth from your past experiences with you. They've shaped who you are, but they don't define who you can become. You have the power to keep evolving, keep growing, keep becoming a better version of yourself. Now, let's talk about the importance of having a vision for your future when you're learning to move on. You see, it's not enough to just let go of the past. You need to have something to move towards. Think about it like this. If you're in a boat and you just cut the anchor, you'll drift aimlessly. But if you have a destination in mind, if you set your sails and start steering in that direction, you'll make progress. The same is true in life. When you have a clear vision of what you want to create in your life, the kind of person you want to become, the impact you want to make, the experiences you want to have, it becomes much easier to let go of what's behind you and focus on moving forward. This vision doesn't have to be incredibly detailed or set in stone. In fact, it's better if it's flexible, if it can evolve as you grow and learn. But it should be compelling enough to pull you forward, to excite you about the possibilities that lie ahead. So, I encourage you to spend some time thinking about your vision for your life. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to grow? What kind of impact do you want to make? Let this vision inspire you and guide you as you move forward. Now, I want to address something that often holds people back from moving on. The comfort of the familiar. You see, even if our current situation isn't ideal, even if we're not happy or fulfilled, there's a certain comfort in the known. We know what to expect. We know how to navigate it. Moving on, embracing change, stepping into the unknown, that can be scary. It requires us to leave our comfort zone, to face uncertainty, to risk failure or disappointment. But here's the thing. Your comfort zone might be comfortable, but it's not where growth happens. It's not where you'll find your greatest joys, your biggest triumphs, your true potential. All of those things lie outside your comfort zone in the realm of the unknown and the uncertain. So part of learning to move on is learning to get comfortable with discomfort. It's about recognizing that the temporary discomfort of change is worth it for the growth and opportunities it brings. It's about trusting in your ability to adapt, to learn, to overcome challenges. Remember, every time you faced a new situation in the past, you've found a way through it. You've learned, you've grown, you've become stronger, and you can do it again. Now, as we wrap up our discussion on learning to move on in life, I want to leave you with this thought. Moving on is not a one-time event. It's a skill, a mindset, a way of approaching life that you can cultivate and strengthen over time. Every day presents us with opportunities to practice moving on, from small annoyances to big setbacks. Each time you choose to let go of something that's holding you back, each time you choose to focus on the present and the future rather than dwelling on the past, you're building this skill. Remember, the goal isn't to never look back. The goal is to use the past as a reference point, not a residence. Learn from it, honor it, but don't live there. Your life is happening now in this moment, and the future is full of possibilities waiting for you to step into them. You have the power to shape your life, to write new chapters, to create new beginnings. All it takes is the courage to let go of what's behind you and reach for what's ahead. So I challenge you, starting today, to practice moving on. When you catch yourself dwelling on the past, gently redirect your focus to the present. When you face setbacks or disappointments, look for the lessons and the opportunities they present. Cultivate gratitude for what you have, vision for what you want to create, and trust in your ability to grow and adapt. Remember, life is a journey, and every ending is also a new beginning. Embrace it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. Your best days are still ahead of you.